Hello, everyone. You're listening to Living on Blockchain, and this is your host, Tarusha. A little about me. I'm the co-founder of Ethics, a crypto and blockchain suite. We are making crypto and blockchain more accessible to users as well as enterprises. It's all about greater adoption. Today's episode is going to be an interview with a very, very special icon in the blockchain space. Jillian is the co-founder of blockleaders.io. She has authored several books and is a leading journalist in this fintech and crypto space. She's been named the crypto queen by N0 conferences, and she was also listed among the 50 most influential women in the global blockchain roll call. She's a board member of EOS Dublin. She's a community leader for Algorand. She is chain agnostic and she loves blockchain in general. She is a huge blockchain advocate and I'm very excited to get her in. So let's get her right in. Hi, Jillian. Thank you so much for taking out the time to do this interview. I'm absolutely in awe of your achievements. Let's dive right in. How are you doing today?
I'm doing brilliantly. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's really great to have you. Please tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to sort of get involved in this crypto and blockchain space.
Do you want the long version or the short version?
We can have the gist.
I was born in February 27th. I had a kind of a traditional fintech career. I was called high tech in those days. You know, I worked with JP Morgan in London. I worked in Australia and Singapore. Mostly PR for fintech companies, and then I worked in. I also started doing some journalism. I love writing. Writing is my passion, so I started doing a lot more writing. I began to do some IT journalism, and I really loved it. And my life was very nice, very lovely. Traveled the world. Came home to Ireland with my English husband. We lived in Dublin for a bit, and then we moved down the country. Wow. And everything was wonderful, wonderful. I had 2 children. We had a little pony for the elder one. We had a big house, we had a good business. It was great, only it wasn't. Sadly, it wasn't. My husband and I split up at that stage, so that was obviously something was not quite right. But we did it at the height of the crash. So it was a bad time to get divorced in a recession. Yeah. And the short story is basically, we had this big house, big mortgage, tried to sell it, and the price was crashing the entire time. So I moved out, my husband moved back to the UK, he became bankrupt in the UK, gave all the debt to myself and our 2 children, and I'm trying to sort all this out, and it's a bit chaotic, and the crash is happening, and so I moved out into a little cottage because I couldn't afford to stay in the house, and the kids had a few ponies, and everything was going terribly, and I had the drug squad actually evicted my tenants in the big house, so, wow. Weed. So I couldn't rent it out again, so I had to try and sell it. So I made a video to try and sell it. The video went viral, and I got a cash offer of 500,000, but it was still less than the cost of the mortgage. So the banks refused consent to sell, and they preferred to repossess the home, and they sold the following year for 165,000. So it made no sense whatsoever. Yeah. And in the midst of this chaos that was happening, that was just my own little story, but the rest of Ireland was going through this huge crash, and people were being shamed by the banks in not paying their mortgages, and they were always talking about gaming the system, whatever. And as a result, so many people, in particular men, were taking their own lives because they couldn't repay their mortgages, because they bought in the peak of the Celtic Tiger, and now maybe they'd lost their jobs, or they'd been unwell, or they'd been through a divorce, whatever. And it was just, people every day were committing suicide, and it was through shame for financial, failing financially. So I got really, really very sort of angry at this, because I'm kind of going, yes, I've lost everything, but, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't commit a crime. Right. So I became a bit political and a bit politicized, and I got sort of ranting and raving against the banks and talking about parity of responsibility and stuff like that. And anyway, so when the banks took my home, I was there, I had no money, I had a large debt, I had no asset, I had no choice but to go bankrupt. And I was the first female bankrupt under the new laws. And then I discovered, as a bankrupt, I wasn't allowed to run for public office. And I went, excuse me, back to this, I've done nothing wrong, I've failed, but I haven't committed a crime. So I brought the government to the High Court. And I said my constitutional rights were infringed because I wasn't allowed to run for public office, and went all the way to the Supreme Court. But I was successful. I changed the law. And then when you change the law, you got to do something about it. And the next elections were the 2014 European Parliamentary elections. And so I ran in that. And it was great fun. It was a learning exercise, and I had an amazing time. I ran as an independent, and I got 11,500 votes, which was wonderful. Not enough to get elected, but it was amazing. And I had a great time, and I thought I was doing my bit by talking about financial failure and saying it wasn't shameful. It was a thing, a thing, and just it happens to people. And usually through no fault of their own, and it's a thing. So that's where that's my short version, right? I'm glad I didn't kill the long version. Anyway, my life went really quiet. And I thought I'd helping people. I've been writing about this stuff, and I did a lot of radio, and I was, I was very concerned about people who were feeling shamed by the banks and by society. And I went, it's tough. You don't need to have shame put on top of you as well. And I thought, but how can I make the world a better place? What can I do next? Is that done? And then just a little under 2 years ago, I met blockchain. And I went, now this makes sense to me. And I was so excited. This makes utterly sense to me. I can see how I can now be part of a movement that can change the world for the better. So that's my short version.
Oh, this is such a wonderful story, really. You had a breakthrough. And obviously, I was pretty inspired by when I started going through your bio and, how you sort of ran as an independent and itself is very, very impressive. Now you're telling me the background story, it makes it more impressive. Wonderful to know. Tell me a little about Block Leaders. How did you come about starting it, and a little bit of an overview?
Okay, well, Block Leaders is my passion.
Right.
It's long-form journalism, because I found I've worked a lot. I've got like 30 years of fintech experience behind me, and 20 of that in journalism too as well. But as a PR for 30 years, I pitch editorial the whole time. I do some PR still today. So I'm always pitching to editors, and I'm also an editor. I also have edited other ordinary fintech publications. And if there's a good news story, a good angle, it should get traction. But I found increasingly in the cryptocurrency world, it was all about money. It was all advertorial, which is when you pay for your space. I'm going, come on, lads, if I've got a good story, surely that should make it run. I shouldn't have to pay you. Yeah. So, and also what I found too as well, I have the best gift of all in 2018, and 2017 as well, I've been traveling all around the world, chairing conferences and blockchain, and you meet the most amazing people. Yeah. And I thought, wow, I would like to have a site that interviews those people. So it's actually it's the greatest joy I can have, because these people are amazing. There's so many amazing, passionate, intelligent, clever, thought-provoking people working in this space, and I get to interview them, and then I get to write up the articles, and I love the writing. So because it's long form, I'm not compressed to like 500 words of a business article that's going to fill a page. I can write up to 2,000 words if I want to, and that's nice, because you get to understand who the people are and what they're doing and what they're talking about, and why they're doing what they're doing. And it's just, that makes it all the more interesting, because before, when I was writing in my business life as a business journalist, I was writing for the Sunday Independent here, the business page. It's very functional. What is the business? What is it doing? What's the turnover? And it's nice. It's clean writing. It's interesting. But this way, I wouldn't ask the CEO of a typical IT company, why he got up in the morning. That's not the type of question you ask me. Yeah. But with Block Leaders, I can dig into it. And I did actually, there's a story running today, and I know this is going to run later, but today is the 17th of May. And there's a story running on Block Leaders today, it's Friday, with Mark Tavener from Bitfury, which is one of the original miners. And I met Mark in Oman, wonderful speaker. He travels the world. He's a guru. He's a wonderful, wonderful speaker. Yeah. And I interviewed him, but he talked about his 16-year-old son who wants to change the world and colonize Mars. And I went, your 16-year-old boy said that? What? So his son kind of stole the story. The whole story is about his son and not about Mark at all. But I have the joy of doing that. And Mark, of course, is thrilled too as well, because obviously he is a guru. He's an amazing man. Yeah. And he's really a good hold. But what he's talking about, obviously it resonates in the family home. And it's because most 16-year-old boys do not want to change the world. Most 16-year-old boys, they want to, play football or play games. They're not, and colonizing Mars. I'm going, wow, where does that come from? I'm going, that's exciting. But also we see that too as well. And that's just one example. The thing that I love, you look at the global climate movement and Greta Thunberg. And all those kids going on strikes. It gives me hope that young people, millennials that are much maligned, are actually thinking about really important things, and they're doing stuff about it. And then I think with blockchain, there's an opportunity to break open the world. And it's not that I'm a anarchist. I'm quite boring, middle-aged woman, but I want to see things done differently. And the blockchain, definitely, the whole movement is not just the technology, it's the whole way of thinking. it will change the world. And, you know, there are some of us old crusties involved, you know, but there are also young people coming through, and that's so exciting. I haven't met you, so I'm sure you're a young person as well, but that's exciting that young people are actually energized. And I think blockchain will give them the tools to actually make a change, have a platform to say, yes, we can change. We can make different kind of banks. We can make different types of government. And again, it's not that I'm an anarchist. I'm saying, let's look at what we have and let's just figure out why are we doing it this way? Because we've always done it this way.
Yeah, let's question it a little more. That is, you know, the whole point, rather than just following the norm.
Yeah, and that's the definition of insanity: doing the same things and expecting a different outcome. But I think what's interesting is that it's taken me 12 years and a lot of, you know, big things happening in my life for me to rethink the system. You know, I can consider myself, you know, largely, you know, middle class and, you know, quite boring, and you know, I like myself, whatever. But it's only that because I've been through adversity and met blockchain at the same time, I've started to go, well, why is it like that? You know, why can banks do that? Why? You know, this big why.
Right. And the man-made institutions, why should they have that much power? Yes.
Why should banks rule the world? I mean, we don't want banks ruling the world, not the way they're set up currently. They're not serving people, they're serving themselves. So it is interesting. And again, it's not, people say I'm not an anarchist, and maybe I am an anarchist, I don't know. But I want to see things differently. I want my kids to experience life differently to how it is now.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And let me just add, I don't think you're anything but boring or crusty, which you keep saying. Or what I see in you, I do not think that at all. I think anybody who's working in blockchain, they've been called an anarchist by someone or the other in some form, in any way. So I think we are all part, you know, welcome to the same club. So you know, I think this is just the new way that the world needs to be shaped. We need to question more, and to question more, not follow the norm, and somehow change things for the better. As you said, you're trying to make it better for your kids. So it's about making the world a better place.
It is. It's huge. And I've never been part of a movement. It is a movement where that is so, I mean, people want to make money, they want to change things, they want to do clever stuff. You know, they have lots of different things. But that is an underlying current, making the world a better place. And that is huge in a commercial, technical movement. I mean, I've never seen that before. I've never had so many people genuinely. And I mean, and there are other motives too, of course, and other agendas. But there's this underpinning thing, we've got to make this better. And that's very powerful, because I've never seen that ever before, even in religious movements. You know, I've never seen it.
That's true. It's about, actually, you know, these are a bunch of people, whoever I talk to, whoever is like working in this space, they're genuinely, you know, genuine people who really want to make a change, who want to make a difference, who want to make it better, who want to use technology for the betterment of, you know, development and, you know, in like developing countries, etc. And that is what really impresses me about people who are working in this space. And I see this part in you.
Yeah, no, and you know, it's very interesting. It kind of fits in with my worldview. When we were growing up, my dad, who's dead now, my mum's alive, they're brilliant parents. But we were always taught to do a lot of, you know, we got involved in the community. You know, the whole idea of the village raising a child. So we were involved with all the different things in the community, with the church, with the school, with the clubs, whatever you're involved in. We got involved and we actively gave back. And we were always taught to look beyond not just our own community, there's other people. So that was kind of an upbringing that we had. And then I remember I met somebody, and this person would consider themselves to be quite generous, etc., etc., etc. But this person only looked after his own immediate family. I remember thinking he would not help somebody if it didn't impact him or benefit him. You know, and there are a lot of people like that who would be generous in their own circle, but who don't think about maybe somebody else whom they don't know, you know, a stranger. And I think what's nice about this movement, I keep calling it a movement, is that there is that inherent feeling that people want to help people that they don't know.
Yeah.
And that's really nice. I think that's a very nice, it's not, of course you want to help your family. Of course you want to look after your kids. Of course you want to help your friends and your neighbors. That's a given. You know, if you're a genuine human being, that's a given. But I really like the fact that stuff that we do here can help people in another country. And we never know them, never meet. It's not even like giving aid. We may never meet these people, but because of changes that we're trying to bring about here, it should positively impact in their lives. Wow. That's a real butterfly effect, isn't it?
Absolutely, totally. I think that is why you know, both you and I are in this space, and we are working because of that, like the nameless, faceless stranger that we might end up helping in some way by the ripple effect that we are causing. So I totally.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So what is your vision for block leaders? Like, what is next? What do you intend to add?
Well, what I want to do is, I say it under my breath, I really want to get out there and travel more and talk to more people because, and I say this under my breath because I do recognize that if I get on an airplane, it's not so good for the climate. So I'm contradicting myself a little bit on that. But I read a very interesting article by Alex Mashinsky, if I pronounce his name right, the CEO of Celsius. He also invented VoIP back in the day. And he made a really important point. Now, you and I are passionate about blockchain, about what it can do in the world, right? That's great. But he said it is almost a moral imperative that anybody who's working in this sector, we have to bring in our friends who know nothing about it. And we can't just talk in our own little bubbles and we have to go outside that, because there is a danger that this might not succeed. If we don't get the mass adoption that we need for this technology and this movement and this thinking, the old form might stay in charge, and we don't want that. So my view is I want to reach more and more people. I want to get mainstream. With that mainstream adoption. So for block leaders, what I'm trying to do is interview more and more people, and then also use it as a platform to go and talk to other conferences, and not just blockchain conferences. I'm trying to broaden my thing now to get to tech conferences, not some side of, and then also as a journalist, I'm trying to get onto media conferences now. And recently I started reaching out, and I was too late. There's an amazing literary conference next week. It's quite an international one, although it's a local one here in Ireland. And I'm too late. But the woman said, who's organised, it's a beautiful conference. It's literature, and it's thinking, and it's dance and arts. So she said, talk to me next year, because she sees that I'm passionate about what I'm doing. So I'm thinking I should take my story and not just look at blockchain. I need to go much broader and get into, like, I've also, I'm going to see my local school, the local secondary school. It's quite a big school for the area. The lowest in the country, there's 1,000 pupils. And I've gone to the principal there and I've said, can I come in and talk to your transition year students? They're kids who take a year out between their inter cycle and a leaving cycle. So it's just, when about 16, 17. Can I come in and talk to children there? Because I have to talk everywhere. And I'm also bashing in the heads without much success, I may add. I have a lot of editors in the traditional space here that I've written for. And I keep on knocking on the door saying, let me in, let me in, let me in. I really want to write about blockchain for ordinary people.
Yeah.
Because, we're all ordinary people, but for people who don't know about it. And so I think that's my vision is, what we put on this earth to do. And increasingly, I think all my experience, actually my entire life, has led me to this point where I'm going, I'm meant to be advocating for blockchain in all its aspects and getting into the ordinary, because my story, as we talked about briefly, it's a very ordinary story. Lots of people have been through financial failure and all the rest of it.
Right.
But it means that I'm not some really intelligent PhD professor in MIT or something like that. I'm an ordinary person that's been through some stuff in life that people can identify with, and now I'm going, wow, I can make a difference. So it's like the reason why I ran for the European Parliament was I thought I have all this misery and I can let it define me, or I can use it for a purpose, and I can use it for a purpose to make other people who are failing financially feel better, because they're either not as bad as me, or they see that I'm talking about it, or there's, there is no shame in it. So in that regard, the same way, now that I love the blockchain, I have this imperative that I really, 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 really need to talk to people outside the 1% who are is it the 1 billion? Is it the 3%? I can't think of what the thing is. There's a very small number of people involved in this sector currently.
Yeah.
So, and also the other nice thing too about this whole movement, I keep calling it a movement, I said a cult or something, unlike trickle down economics, which by the way, we know doesn't work, this is bottom up movement. So it will work, because if you're everybody engaged, you cannot stop the people. I must be an anarchist.
I completely agree. I think no field or sector can sort of grow in a vacuum, and I love the fact that you're talking to people out there, and you're sort of going to other conferences as well, not just blockchain conferences, because when we just sort of insulate the community, it at some point there would stagnation will set in, and it's so wonderful that you want to go and talk at that literary festival. I think that'll be wonderful. It's about mass adoption, and that can only happen when more people are educated about it. Right now, there is way too much jargon. There's in this field, people talk about things without really understanding that perhaps the end user will not get it or assimilate it, and that's why I think that is one reason why you're on this podcast as well, and why I've created this podcast, because I want to take up the jargon from this sector so that people actually understand it, because I think that's the only way that mass adoption can happen.
And I think too as well is the two big things that people throw at blockchain and cryptocurrencies. It's a Ponzi scheme, and it's really bad for all the energy. Right. And it's like, you get beyond that. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's fiat money actually is a Ponzi scheme. Yeah, and then also it's, yes, Bitcoin is very energy intensive, but there are many blockchains that have come afterwards that use no energy. Proof of stake gets rid of all that computing power, and it's only going to improve. Because you have also, actually Tim Draper, I think, said, he was asked, did he really think that blockchain and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency would succeed? And he said, if you think about it, fiat money is controlled by governments and bureaucracy. Cryptocurrencies, on the other hand, is attracting some of the most bright people in the world. So who would you like to put your money on? I think the bright people, because they're going to come up with all this stuff that it's going to totally, and it's not that I'm anti-fiat, I'm anti how it is administered and how it is controlled.
Definitely, 100%. So actually, that is the perception that people tend to think that, as you said, being labeled as an anarchist and being told that, okay, but this is a system, and how else do you propose to do these new way of things? I think it is a little about, whenever you introduce something new, there would be resistance, especially by businesses who are profiting from it. 100% you will get that, and that you are in the EU zone. What is your perception of the laws and the policies in Europe regarding crypto?
Okay, well, at the moment we're facing huge challenges here because of Brexit. Ireland is hugely impacted by Brexit because people who are producing things like farmers or manufacturers, the biggest market is over in Britain, obviously. And then we have the border with Northern Ireland. The last 20 years we've had the peace, the Good Friday Agreement, and that has been threatened by a hard border being put back in place. So we are facing huge problems here at the moment. In terms of the EU, Ireland is more favourable towards the EU. There are some bad things. There's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of money, there's quantitative easing, there's a lot of things that I don't like. Where the EU has been very good for Ireland is in equality, because we inherited from the UK, we had a lot of laws that were unequal. So for example, Senator David Norris brought the Irish government to the European Court of Human Rights because being gay was not legal. It was illegal to be a gay man I think it was in the 70s still. Mad. And he's a lecturer, he's actually a friend as well, a really good guy. But he was able to change the law in Ireland because of the European Court of Human Rights. Right. And we've had a lot of things. Recently, we brought through passed the Eighth Amendment, repealed the Eighth Amendment because we couldn't have pregnancy terminations here in Ireland. And whatever your feelings are, no one actually wants an abortion, obviously. But because it was illegal in Ireland, 3,000 women every year had to go over to the UK to have this procedure done. And it put you stress. It was just wrong. People who had, babies who were going to die anyway, young mums, people didn't have money. So the EU has been very positive for us in asserting our rights, especially as women in particular, or if you're in a minority. Where it's not so good is, and it's also very good, we got a lot of income came in as well. We had a lot of funds, a lot of our roads were built with EU money. So we were a net receiver at some stage. However, they also took away, because we're an island, they took away a lot of our natural rights. So it can be argued that although we got a lot of money in to build our roads, which is great because we're a very small country, 4 million people in the south, it was also not so good because we gave away in our natural rights around the fishing and oils and stuff like that. That was more that was given away. So the EU, it's cumbersome. It's not great. There's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of, it's a talking shop half the time. However, we're coming into the elections again next week. We're voting in our MEPs, and there's a couple of rabble-rousers going into the pot. So that could be interesting. I think that there was one there last year, Ming, he was called. He's great. He was always creating chaos. And there's another two people who are very left-wing, but they're good to shake up because it is very bureaucratic.
Okay. All right. Okay. And what about Ireland in particular? What is Ireland's perception of the society, of the government, of blockchain and crypto? What do you feel? Okay.
Ireland is a very interesting country. We have no natural resources. Well, actually, except water, which could be very valuable going forward in the future. A lot of rain. But we have a lot of it we will be, when the UK leaves the EU, we'll be the only native-speaking English country left in the EU. So our economy is booming at the moment. And also the government was very clever about, in the 80s, I think it was, they did a lot of attractive tax rates, which we're also in conflict with the rest of the EU. but we managed to attract 9 out of the top 10 fintech companies into Ireland. So things like Facebook and Airbnb and Twitter and SAP and most of the top 9 of the top 10 fintechs and pharma are located in Ireland. So it means we are very IT friendly. With regards to blockchain in particular, we're holding our first blockchain week at the end of May, Blockchain Ireland. So there's about 50 events all over the country taking place. That's exciting. And so there's a bit of a movement. The government's a bit slow. It hasn't anything like Malta or Isle of Man. It's Gibraltar. It's been a bit slow in looking at blockchain and cryptocurrencies, but there is a movement. And, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because they will realize that this is a game changer,
Yeah. No, so I think there are a lot of governments. I think most governments, apart from perhaps, even in USA, they are slow in the uptake with the entire policy formation for blockchain and crypto. They keep either flip-flopping from one to the other, or they are still, making the laws. But as you said, even I am hopeful that they will realize the benefit versus the challenges, because this is such new technology in its infancy. I think policymakers do have their own reservations, and also they need the right kind of, information for them to truly understand, rather than just sort of labeling it as a Ponzi scheme or just sort of thinking of blockchain as Bitcoin, which is what the larger perception seems to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think in some ways it's been good that when Bitcoin peaked at the 20 grand back in the end of 2017, and that had pros and cons. Everybody was speaking about it, right? And then all of them dropped, it was a Ponzi scheme. But I think, and it's going back now, as we know, it's kind of around 8 grand, whatever. But it's not a bad thing, because if everyone's talking about it, even if they're saying, it's a Ponzi scheme, they're talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think in time, if they'll have heard it, so they're going to hear the next and go, oh, maybe it's not a Ponzi scheme. Oh, maybe that's that use case. Because Jaguar Jeep or Land Rover Jeep announced a couple of weeks ago in Ireland, they're going to be trialing this new thing where they're going to pay drivers of new cars cryptocurrencies, their own coin, to have feedback, so about potholes and traffic, and so it's all that data that they're going to monetize. And it was reported in all the media. Most of them didn't mention cryptocurrencies. They said digital rewards. They didn't like to use the word cryptocurrency, but it's getting there. So I think this whole awareness thing is starting to break through, and then people are scared of new things. They're scared of change, and institutions are threatened, rightly so, because they become these bulbous, horrible, amorphous, horrible corporates that are not serving their customers well. So they're right to be scared, because they will be held accountable in this new world.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. No, so I think we share the perception there that, as I said, that, people usually, fear change, and they don't know how things, because they do not know. They fear the outcome more than the change. What's going to happen post that change is implemented. I think that's where the fear comes from. And that brings us back to the same chain of thought that, information is the key, as for mass adoption and for people to understand it and perceive it better, for them to realize the kind of benefit that this technology will bring into their life.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the irony is too, as well, if you ask most people what they think about financial institutions, the trust is gone. The people are like going, I'm not very happy with the bank, the crises, the Lehman Brothers, the 2008, the bailing out the banks, the bailing in. People generally don't trust the bank. So I think it's only a question to say, well, you know what, let's look at other alternatives. And I think the tipping point will come soon.
Yeah.
I think maybe in the next 3 years, we'll see a huge shift.
Yeah, I do believe that. I think that is like a universal feeling all over the world. In any country, people are usually not happy with the banks, but they don't really have an alternative to sort of look at either. But as you said, that the tipping point should come soon, and they should be looking at, blockchain and crypto and tokenized currency as something that would help them make that change and lead better lives.
Yes. Yeah, I think it is. I was at a conference there last year, and I met a friend who I hadn't seen in ages. And it was interesting. We were talking about this, and, how 1% of the world owns 80% of the wealth. It's absolutely crazy. It's getting worse. And we were talking, you know what? With cryptocurrencies, they can hang on to their fiat. We don't want their fiat. We can exchange value and do business and live our lives quite independently of the fiat mechanism. And then he said, do we think it'll be a bloodless revolution or not? We don't have to fire a bullet. You don't have to. We just have to say, you know what? I don't want to have any fiat money. I'm going to work here, and you're going to pay me in cryptocurrency, and I'm going to spend it. Blah blah blah. Let's exchange. We could do a big silent movement of people away from fiat, and then the banks will say, "Oh, where have they all gone? We're still here." We're still not using your money.
Yeah, and we will be leading the crypto-friendly life.
I interviewed a chap. He's an Irish guy. He's a young guy. I think he's traveling a lot. But I interviewed him, and he lives off the grid. He does everything via cryptocurrency.
Wow. I think there are a lot of examples of people who are now trying to actively move towards it. But again, it comes down to, how many, because for people to do that, for people to make that, sort of leap, they need to have more information, which is, as I said, it's so great that this particular sector is now opening up, and it's not just insulated, so that more people can join this movement, as we put it.
Yes, yeah, and it's like a very silent wave coming in, or rising water, and you go, oh, it's here, it's here,
it's already here, yeah, before they know it.
And not a gun needs to be shot.
Truly. Yeah. So tell me, what is the key role of media or journalists in crypto and the blockchain space? Well, how do you perceive the media role?
Well, it has to explain and raise awareness. Currently, it's doing a very bad job. Yeah. Most of the mainstream, I've come up against, as I say, editors who will not even talk to me about it, who say, no, I'm sorry, it's Ponzi. Yeah. And in my local NUJ branch, I'm not allowed, I keep saying, let me talk about blockchain, please. They won't give me the space.
Yeah.
So additional journalists are fighting back as hard as other organizations, which is very unfortunate, because we're the fourth estate. We're meant to hold government to account. We're meant to hold organizations to account. We're meant to bring awareness of new things that benefit humanity. So and those that are, and it's interesting, those that are in this space, a lot of them are people who are just very keen on blockchain, maybe who aren't journalists, but it surprises me time and again that journalists who are meant to be investigative and thinking and asking questions are so slow to come to this field. So we should be doing more.
Yeah, that's true. I have that same perception as well. I was reading up about you, and I read that you mentor startups as well. So how has your experience been in that space? And then, that actually is coming to the question that how do startups who are working in this space, crypto or blockchain, how should they approach journalists and the people in the media so that they can be written about? Okay,
well, I've always done that when in my capacity, whether I've been a successful businesswoman or very broke, I've always tried to help other people, because and also at this stage too as well, I have a huge network. I look around and go, gosh, I know that person. By sheer dint of being on this planet 54 years, you get to know so many people. So I've always helped people starting up, because I admire tremendously. I love entrepreneurs. I love people who have ideas and passion and want to do something. So if I can help anybody anyway, I always would. And in terms of if you are a startup looking to get out in this space, it is tough, because traditional media won't look at you if you're in blockchain. And a lot of the blockchain media are very keen to take money off you. So it's not easy. However, if I were a startup, what I would be doing, if you have spare bandwidth, and I know people are so busy, whatever, there's a huge lot of new media and influencers and bloggers and writers. So I would almost say, just start capturing friendly names and making friends with people who are doing podcasts, such as yourself, just myself, and just reach out and say, can I come on your podcast? Can you write an article? You take this piece of news from me? And I think you can go, there's more than one way to skin a cat, Yeah.
But, just sort of reaching out at times can be very helpful, because you might be just pleasantly surprised.
Well, I think most people, do you know what I often would do as well? Most people, if you plumose, it's an Irish word, an Irish expression, if you flatter the person that you want to be on. So if you say, gosh, Jill, you're great, I'd love to be on your show. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, okay. Because people are human beings, Or I often say, if you want advice or you want something, if you always say, can I have a coffee with you? Or can I have a 5-minute conversation? I'd love to get your ideas. People love to be asked their advice. And that's a way in of connecting with people. So don't necessarily go start and say, oh, I want you to do this. Say, may I ask your opinion? May I get your advice? Yeah. And most people are flattered by that naturally. And give your time. And then who knows, a relationship can form, or you get some good advice, or you make a connection. Yeah. And the other thing too as well, I always say to startups too as well, people will say no all the time.
Right.
So just build a bridge, get over it. It's not, people will say no, and they have reasons for saying no, which have nothing to do with you whatsoever. We all know some of the best like singers and the best inventors, the best writers they all had no, they all had rejections.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling, her book was rejected. Harry Potter was rejected so many times.
Yeah.
And she kept on going. So people reject you because you don't fit into their mold or their thinking, or they're just having a plain bad day. It doesn't mean that your idea is bad. It just get up and go on to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be the end of the road for you just because you have, faced a rejection. It just means that, you try the next door, so to say.
Yeah. And it's I know it's not easy. Rejection is not easy to take, but you go, okay, that's another one down, and then by sheer dint of keeping on trying, that whole persistence thing, you will get somebody or you'll find someone. And then, you have a lovely conversation. You go, wow, I feel great. That's amazing. That person's wonderful. You walk off with a spring in your step then.
All right. Yeah, totally. I understand that. So that brings me to my next question. What challenges did you face while setting up block leaders, and how did you overcome them?
Biggest challenge, and actually we're facing them again. Okay. We got investment at the start and then that ran out. Right. So now I'm trying to reorganize it again to get some more investment, and I'm doing most of the writing myself at the moment because I can't afford to pay writers. Hopefully that'll come around again. Money is typically the hardest thing to keep things going. And I mean, obviously I've got time and I've got experience. So I'm trying to build in a new team that are going to do all the sales for me, because sales is not really my skill set.
Yeah.
The other challenge is, but I mean, I love it, is to make sure your writing is fresh. Because if you're going to put your passion to something, you want to make sure it's the best you can possibly do. And that challenge actually is quite easy because I love doing it. So that's not a challenge at all. That's a pleasure. I love other people. People, I'd say, you might think that they might be a bit, use the word boring, whatever, but you chat to them, you find out what makes them tick, and you go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that's kind of cool. So money is always an issue. Yeah. Obviously, that's something that you have to pay the bills, and even though I would consider myself creative and an artist and a writer, but I'm also practical and commercial. So I've got to pay bills. I know that. But the other challenge is to stay fresh and happy, because you don't want to be bored. You can't, and then you might talk like boring stuff, and that would be very sad.
Yeah, nobody likes sad writing. Yeah, I get that. So and human interest stories are they sort of do have that fresh quality. I think that's something that never goes out of style. That, when you
it's also, I have 2 terrestrial radio stations here, one commercial, one community, and I've guests on the whole time, and it's my job to make them interesting. It's my job to find out what makes them tick. So I love doing that. I love other people. I really like, and I know I'm the person we interviewed today, so I'm not asking you any questions, but I love other people. I love going, oh, you did that. Oh, that's it. Oh, you did that. Well, that's interesting. And I find people endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, people can be fascinating. That is totally true. I think once you sort of, I think you get better with this. Interact with more people, you actually tend to understand what would be like a point for somebody or the other, and then that just makes for interesting conversation. I think you just get better as you interact with more and more people.
Yes, I think so. And again, it comes down to a genuine love of what you're doing and love of people. That is, if you're bored of people, it'll come across. But if you like the old adage, if you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. There's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, genuine curiosity, and just like trying to that active listening, that does help, because that's where you sort of read between the lines, and you can your next question can come from there. I totally get that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. You're a very active listener.
Thank you. Okay, so you talked about money. So are you is your platform planning an ICO, or do you have any plans of that in the offing?
No. It's interesting that, isn't it? Because I was an advisor to a lot of startups last year in blockchain, and they're all doing ICOs. And the majority of them, God love them, all failed. I mean, they were good, genuine people, but the market went so bad towards the end of the year. Even good ideas were not succeeding. So no, I'm not really a fundraiser, because it's hard. I'm better at communicating than raising funds. I don't know. It's not yet, shall we say? Not yet.
Actually, never.
I've just come full circle. That's a great idea. I'm going to take you up on that.
Yeah, okay. So which was like the first ICO that you've ever invested in, or if you have?
I don't actually, that's terrible. I don't actually invest, but I've been asked to work for, and the very first one, oh my goodness, 2017, there were so many. There was one that I was working on actively involving the equine industry here in Ireland, but it never got off the ground. it got knotted up. And that was my first, I was actually working with the team. And it's so neat to see how you can get totally wrapped up in stuff. And then it just sort of imploded in the end. And then I was working for another Irish net message aggregation software. And that kind of stalled too as well. So, but then on the flip side, I work with, I'm actually on the board of EOS Dublin.
Right.
And the EOS, now that's very interesting. And it's not without its difficulties, whatever. But the EOS Dublin chaps are very good, and they're launching a new GDPR compliant chain, global chain next month, and that's interesting. So I think what I found is I worked with a lot of ones last year that were very they were good ideas, but they failed. It was kind of sad. It was a lot of them failed. But the ones that did fail, who are still working, and I've invested my time in them, if you like. It's actually much more interesting now. It's less flighty. It's much more solid business now.
Yeah, right. That's absolutely true. So what do you sort of look for perhaps in a team? And if you would like to say or predict if an ICO is going to be a success, what are the things that you look for in that particular project?
I think there's three main things. Is it actually solving a problem? Is it actually worthwhile? Is the actual overall product or project, does it make sense? And should it be on blockchain? Because sometimes they're not meant to be on blockchain. So that's, looking at just using your old-fashioned business acumen. Yeah. And then secondly is the team. There are a lot of very bright young people in this space, but it's nice to see some grey hairs as well, because, young people have a lot of good ideas, but they haven't done it before, so they won't know all the pitfalls that may approach them soon.
Yeah.
It's nice. I mean, I'm nothing against young people, fantastic. I love working with them. The ideas are amazing, but it's nice to see a mentor or something in there too as well, so that they can get some help. Yeah. And then finally, what is, I think, in terms of evaluating a project, an MVP or even a feature, doesn't have to be a full MVP, just, even like I'm going to build this, whatever, and they have something working and they can show you to you and go, oh, okay, I can see that. And they put some time and effort, and whether it's sweat equity or maybe some seed capital themselves, right. That's because you're asking people to invest. You should have invested a lot yourself as well, time, energy, or maybe money. Yeah. And those are typical things to say, can you tick those boxes? Yeah. And then sometimes some projects are just a lot of fun because they're making the world a better place. I mean, yes, I want that.
Yeah, no, it's very important, I think, to have skin in the game. And as you said, that is like something that, we look at as well, how much skin is in the game for the people who are there working on the project. There are wonderful ideas, but, how well can you execute them is the point you can get ideas.
Yeah, and it's not, again, this is not anti-young people. I think young people are amazing, obviously. And it's great to work with people because they've got such energy and they've new ways of thinking. They really do. It's like, I've got old ways of thinking that I'm trying to unlearn myself and unthink myself. But people, they go, I never thought of that. Oh, I never thought of that. So it's amazing. But by the same token, they haven't been down that road before. So they don't know what lies ahead of them, and they don't know what to do when they hit a gate or they hit a bump in the road, whatever. So that's where I say just a little bit of gray hair. This is what you tend to do. This is how you get beyond that.
It's a little about balance. I think that, you should have like the right kind of experience as well to back up those very exciting ideas so that the execution is actually bang on. And you reach where you sort of, have set out to go.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So how do you perceive women participation in this space? Because, I feel that, women are not highlighted in general in the tech space, and the blockchain or deep tech space, it usually becomes, they become even more rarer. So what is your perception?
It's very tough at the moment. Is it 4% women active in this space? It's crazy. Yeah. This is way too important to let men rule it. And we have that recent example with NASA, where the two women were meant to go do a walk.
They couldn't go, walk. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, because they haven't got enough suits. Yeah. Enough. What? If NASA can get it wrong, you get it wrong.
I read that and I was like, really? That is the reason you're going to give us? That, you don't have a proper suit for it? It was
unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah. There are loads of examples of where it's because men rule the world. There's lots of women are, in medicine, medicines are judged on the male form, male body. Yeah. Always tested on the men and people design things. They design car seats for men, not for women, because women have breasts. And I'm sure there's a better way of locking people into a car than And so there's lots of things in this world that are skewed because women are not involved.
Yeah,
and this is too important.
Yeah, and I think that women in leadership positions, that in all spaces, not just in the blockchain space, I think we bring in a lot of empathy as well, which somehow, it becomes, as you said, because if it is skewed and the gender ratio is skewed, then that empathy is not there. and the kind of toxic masculinity, that kind of leadership sort of, has its way. And it's very important to have more and more women to participate. But how would you suggest that perhaps we can get more girls and women into STEM or blockchain in general?
Well, I do a lot of talking in this area. I'm giving a talk week after next at Blockchain Ireland Week about women in blockchain.
Yeah.
And again, too, as well, like I've decided, I went to recently, I have to go outside the blockchain environment. So I want to talk in schools. I want to talk at festivals that are mind and body and soul, and are not techie. I'm actively looking for lots of places to start talking about this and just to start demystifying it. And women tend to hand back because it's seen as nerdy, and girls, especially at that very sensitive age when they're teenagers and stuff, they kind of back off from that. Sometimes it's not, it's just, it doesn't happen so much. And also women are risk averse typically, so because it's been so a Ponzi scheme, they're going, oh, I'm not getting involved with that, So there's a perception we have to do, but I think it's onus on us all to say this is a good thing and to speak it wherever we can.
Yeah, right. So I think you're again right on there, and it actually just keeps coming down to a more information being sort of disseminated in a way that people can actually understand it and not adopt to this particular technology.
Yeah, I think so. I think the more we talk about it, and it's not the onus on us, both as women and as blockchain advocates, is not just talk within the bubble. You have to get outside the bubble and talk to people. And even if they're going, oh, don't talk to me, so I don't want to hear about it, talk about it.
Yeah.
I know I have some friends who go, stop talking about the funny money, the magic beans. I'm going, well, let me tell you this story today instead.
No, I think
my friends, they put their hands over their ears and go, no, don't talk to me, don't talk to me.
They're gonna regret that if they miss out on this particular train. And as you said, I see it like in probably like the next few years, it's going to be a tipping point where everybody is going to really realize the value that blockchain and cryptocurrency can bring to the world.
Yes, I think so. It's just we have to, and the onus is on us to get out there. I mean, like I did for the elections, because I was talking about I'm not ashamed of failing financially. We have to talk about these things. Yeah. There's a big movement in Ireland to talk about mental health, because
you stole the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say mental health is again, it becomes an issue. Yeah,
we have to talk about things like that. So there was, the suicide around stigma over suicide, self-harm, mental health, all those things, disabilities. There's you need to talk about stuff. When you talk about stuff, then you become inclusive. And it's not them and us anymore.
It is definitely not about them versus us. And, people sort of perceive it like that. And that perception has to be dismantled. And I think that can only be done by giving out the right information.
Yes. Yeah. So that's our job.
Yeah, that's our job. Yeah. So how has your experience been advocating for blockchain in various countries? Which country do you think is friendliest to innovation and blockchain, in your opinion?
Well, you see, each time I've gone, and I've been to quite a few countries, not extensive, but I mean, I've been in Kiev and Oman and Sri Lanka, Dubai and Texas and Amsterdam and London. So quite a few, and Cape Town. But I'm going to conferences that are blockchain conferences. So of course, I've been, they're getting a very welcoming reception. And the countries are at different stages with their governments, whatever. So it's hard to judge the temperature of a country based on those conferences, because they are blockchain conferences.
Exactly.
So everyone there is all very excited. That's the bubble thing. So the more I think about it, the more I realize it's important to get onto the other, fashion channels, I don't know, beauty channels, things that I don't normally go to, and to start, outside the bubble we need to get. Right. So in answer to your question, sorry, I can't really take the temperature, because every time I've been to these different countries, I've been surrounded by like-minded people.
Yeah, that's true. That actually, as it's because when you go to that conference, obviously there are all of those enthusiasts, and you cannot really gauge the right perception of the policy makers, etc. That I understand. But nevertheless, if you had to sort of choose one country or one government which is sort of doing it right, who would that be, in your opinion?
Well, I think some of the flagship companies that are doing it very well. I mean, Switzerland's doing very well. And they have the Crypto Valley there, of course. And then Malta, Isle of Man, Gibraltar, any of those tax haven islands, if you like, are doing quite well, because and it's also because if you think about it, if you're raising a lot of money in crypto, because it's so hard to figure out what you're meant to do with taxation, and governments haven't quite decided yet. You're going to go to a financial friendly site, so that they are Belarus, Estonia. And Estonia because
flag bearer of how things should be done.
Yeah, I have a friend who we do crypto divas with, and the story she tells me about the government in Estonia, and I've seen reports about it. Actually, Estonia is my favorite, and they're doing the most.
They're planning to, or they have recently held elections as well using blockchain. I think I was reading that somewhere, and I'm just mighty impressed by the kind of steps that their government has taken, which are very pro. They're just trying to be more inclusive about the technology rather than sort of isolating it entirely or just labeling it as a one thing or the other. So
and I think. Because they have a rather aggressive neighbor in Russia.
That might be a reason, but whatever works. So I'm all for it. I think that they're taking very big, those tiny steps are actually, adding up to Estonia being a complete flag bearer, I think, in this space.
Yes. Yeah, they get my top vote.
Yeah. So, what would be like your top 5 learnings, and that you could share with our community in the blockchain or crypto space?
Always learn. Maybe that's the top one.
Yeah,
because it's actually backed up by big science and neuroscience. That if you are learning the whole time, it keeps your brain alive. You get these new neural pathways, and it's very good for you for your overall being and your youth and your health and all the rest of it. So, I don't know. Do you want to? I think the biggest thing that I have learned in my learning is that I love feeling optimistic without feeling flaky.
Yeah.
That like I'm a snowflake. I actually genuinely, I love. That's a really nice place to live in because people say, "Oh, you're hippy dippy." I'm going, no, we can make the world a better place. So that's a very powerful thing to learn, that you can, because when you're a child, you want to be an astronaut, you want to save the world, whatever, and then you can become a grown up, and it's all knocked out of you. You want to be an accountant or something like that, and you want to have your garden and your 2.4 kids, whatever. But what I love, the biggest learning is all the learning, but B, the permission to be optimistic about this world, and the permission to think that what I'm doing is making a difference. That's a big, big thing, isn't it? Because normally you're perceived as being aggressive or arrogant, whatever. But no, I can make a difference. Wow, that's a really big thing, and it's not a grandissimo thing, or it's not an aggrandizement, or it's not me being boastful. But I can make a difference.
Yeah,
that's very powerful.
Everybody can, I think, and having that faith is so important, because otherwise you're just sort of in your comfort zone, right? You're just sitting there. Thinking that you cannot do anything, and that is just not a very happy place to be in. I completely agree that it's not about being hippy-dippy, and it's just about having that little I'm going to use a word that people don't like it in the tech space, having a little faith. And it doesn't have to be in a figure or a god, but it can be just in yourself, that you can make a difference, you can make that change, because ultimately
it's nice. Sorry,
no, I said ultimately it is about individuals.
I think your point is very well made, because having faith in yourself, and you know what, if you think you can make a difference, you'll do a little bit better. There's the stuff riding in what you do, so I'm not saying you gotta be Superman running around the place, but if you think that you can make a difference, well, then you up your game automatically.
You will work a little harder, a little smarter, just so that you can prove your own vision right.
It's a very powerful thing. To think you are part of something that makes a difference.
Absolutely. I think that is how, so many huge communities are they come together, right? I think all communities come together because, they think that they are a part of something that is so much bigger than themselves, and they need to change. Yeah.
And the nice thing is that someone else mentioned this too as well, and I'm just thinking about it, but they were saying, your nationality comes because of where you're born. And it's kind of an arbitrary thing, really, and it's formed by the common history. And but if the same child was born in a different country, they'd be quite different. So it's quite arbitrary to think that you're kind of like your feeling of nationality and your tribalism comes from where you're born, but that same child could be planted in a different country and quite different. Same child, different things, whatever. So it's going to ask the question: are borders so important? And then you can have communities that don't rely on geography. But rely on belief. And I'm not getting into the religious side of things, which is a bit different, but just communities of people who think alike. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm not sure what to make of it or anything, but I like it.
No, it's, I think, very important to be around people who, who are coming up with new ideas, who are innovating, or who sort of have similar beliefs in terms of, as you said, that, we can make a change together. It doesn't have to be, it's not religious. It's just that belief in yourself and belief that, you can make your life better.
Yeah, being a humanist, I guess, isn't it? You're believing in human beings. Yeah.
So, yeah, but we are so dictated by our geographies. But thankfully now the world is becoming smaller with internet and technology, which is great. But there are still people with these perceptions in mind, and I think that kind of just limits their own vision of their life and what they can do as people. Yeah, there is a change to saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very proud Irish woman, and we're playing rugby. I'm cheering for Ireland, and I love Irish writers and all that stuff. But it's nice to think that I can be a citizen of the world as well, and I can, that's a nice feeling that's possible.
Yeah, that you can, you're as it again comes down to, you're part of something bigger than just the geography confines you to. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's it. And what I like too as well is that here we are having this conversation. Like, oh yeah, that's interesting. You don't normally have those conversations during the working day. You're an accountant. You're doing figures. You're not saying about, what does the world look like, and what if we were all global citizens? What does that mean?
Yeah, you're talking about all of these. It's obviously very fascinating. So, how has your experience been working in a startup? Like that would be a sort of a departure from your fintech career, and now you're working your own startup. How has your experience been?
I much prefer. I'm genuinely an entrepreneur. The last time I worked for JP Morgan, and I worked for Iona Technologies here back in the 80s. 2000. Sorry, but the rest of the time I've always had my own company, and I've always worked in startups. Okay. And what I love about them is the pay is a bit dodgy sometimes. It's a money thing, I haven't cracked the money thing.
I know it.
But I love the freedom, and I love being an entrepreneur. Means you work all the hours that God gives you, but you also have freedom. So if I want to go, actually I've got another call after this, and then I'm going for a walk. And I think if sometimes if you're in an office, it's very hard, or you're employed by somebody else. So, and also being a startup, it's interesting, and you meet other people, and it's I like this lifestyle. And I work from home mostly. I mean, yesterday, in fairness, I was in Dublin all day. It was a 2-hour drive. So it's a bit of a pain. And it cost me maybe €30 in parking. So that was a bit painful. Yeah. But it was interesting. I had a great day, whatever. But mostly I'm at home. And that's nice too as well. I have freedoms. I can get up, go to bed when I want, whatever, So I like that flexibility in my lifestyle.
Yeah. I think that is what most entrepreneurs sort of why they choose this particular path. They like the freedom that comes along with it. So if in a parallel universe, if you were not doing this, what can you sort of imagine yourself doing?
Oh, well, and I do hope to do it next. Writing. I've written several books.
Okay.
But I have not been commercially successful yet. Okay. So what I'm hoping to do, I've written about 6 books actually. So I know how to write a book. I mean, and they're quite well made books. But my next thing is that actually, this is kind of funny. I wrote in 2013 when I was very, very broke, and my business collapsed, and bailiffs came in, and it was just so painful because of the divorce and the recession together. Oh. And so at the same time, the fastest selling book in the world was E.L. James' 50 Shades. So I can write a better book than that. Yeah. So I wrote a trilogy of erotica in 2013. It's actually very well written, I have to say. And so I really enjoyed doing that, and I put in all, because it's not just ordinary. It's got feminism, and it's got activism, it's got all about Ireland, it's all kind of crazy, whatever. But what I did was then I've rewritten it now, and I'm calling it Confessions of a Cryptomaniac. So I'm putting some blockchain in. That is fun. My mum has read it. My mum is a very open-minded woman. She's 88. She's an amazing lady, and she read it. It was well written. She didn't like certain parts, whatever. But what's interesting is that my mom is terribly open-minded and very non-judgmental. She's amazing, but she can't really tell her friends that her daughter wrote erotica. It's not really. They look a bit askance at it. Yeah. So I have to write. The next thing that I have to do when I get sorted all this stuff is I have to write a novel that my mom can share with her friends.
Wow. Okay, that's yeah.
I have to do.
So do you intend to have you published anything so far? Have you self-published any book? Can you?
Yeah. I've self-published quite a few. I couple of children's books, and then the original trilogy was published. The Cougar Diaries, Part 1, 2, and 3 by Aoife Brennan. Okay. And then I've rewritten the first one too, the Confessions of a Cryptomaniac. Okay. So I've written a couple of memoirs too as well. But I need to write the book that my mom's going to love. So. And I have loads of ideas. I just need the time.
Right. Yeah, you'll make the time, I'm pretty sure. So all of these, the books that you've written, they are available, say on Amazon or somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I can send you links as well afterwards if people want to have a. Absolutely. I always say, if you want to understand what Ireland was like during the crash, you can and enjoy erotica. You can read my.
Sure, you send me those links and add it up to the description, and people can perhaps look at those as well.
Yes, I'll send you the links.
This is super exciting. Okay, so I'm come down, I think, to my penultimate question. So who are your perhaps thought leaders or influencers, or basically who you admire in this space, who you sort of just follow?
I mean, Zhao from Zhao from Binance.
Right.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I interviewed him last year. He's probably too big for me to interview now, but he's a very a businessman and visionary, amazing man. I follow Tim Draper, of course.
Yeah.
John McAfee I follow him too.
Yeah.
And then I like people like Dan Larimer and Thomas Cox.
Yeah.
Thinking people. Yes, there's quite when those people speak, I normally listen. And I'll follow what they're saying. Follow what they're talking about, because I think they have something to say.
Yeah, and they do have that kind of influence that's going to sort of have an impact on the market as well, on this field in general.
Yeah. No, they're. I mean, in terms of businessmen, like CZ is just amazing. He is just. I am in awe of that man and what he does. He doesn't always get it right, but he makes it right. He's phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay. But what about some female influences? Do you have any female thought leaders that you're following, or our listeners should follow, and you'd want to give them a heads up?
Oh well, who I love? Tony Lane Casterly. Was it Casterly Lane? I got mixed up. She's with Shios.
Okay.
And I've spoken to her once. I want to speak to her again. An amazing mind, really is. She's very, very powerful, and very, very impressed with her. She's phenomenal.
Okay, excellent. So now my last question.
And that's why, sorry, I beg your pardon. That's why we need more women. And it's not terrible. You asked me, and I named like 5 men.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fine. That is why I have to follow up question for females, because usually.
No, you're 100% right. I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked at myself. Shocked and ashamed.
No, do not be. The numbers are very skewed. It's difficult to sort of come up with, at the top of our own heads, to come up with a female influencer as against a male influencer, because there's so many of them, right?
Yes.
So you tend to say that those names before. That's why I have the follow-up question that who are the female ones that you sort of follow, because that is what we are trying to do here: push more women in this space, and obviously throw light on the women who are already in this space and who are not getting their due.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So now my last question: how do you think end users can effectively live on blockchain and crypto? Like, what do you think that they can do for the first 2-3 steps that they can take, in which in your opinion, that would help them sort of get in the space or start living on blockchain?
Okay, well, do you know what? I gave a talk last year, again with the women focus. And afterwards, a lot of women came to me after and said, well, how can I get involved? I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant, I'm a whatever. And there are 1 or 2 programmers there who actually were actively involved. And I said to them, do you know what? Whatever you're doing, just take it into the blockchain space, because there is a need. There's a whole ecosystem there that needs lawyers and accountants and secretaries and marketeers, PRs and writers, or whatever. I mean, whatever happens in the old world is needed in the new world.
Yeah.
And then how do they get involved? Because that's obviously a bit more harder. I said, well, go to meetups. There's meetups on the whole time. Yeah. Start listening to podcasts like this one. Yeah. And start reading stuff. And then even on LinkedIn, put in blockchain advocate. Yeah. See what happens. Because when you start to look at an area, opportunities will arise. Yeah. And there are more and more, like Consensus are hiring again. There's movement. There are jobs. They're interesting. Apparently last year on LinkedIn, the majority of jobs that were growing still were in IT, but in blockchain. Right. And people who worked in blockchain could command a premium. If you're a programmer, it's a programmer, you could command a premium of another 40% on top of the other salaries. But it's just whatever it is you're doing, because presumably you like what you're doing, or maybe you don't. Maybe it's time for a career change. But if you like what you're doing, just take that into the blockchain world, and increasingly there will be jobs coming on stream all over the place. But go to meetups, start your own startup, or just reach out to people. If you have a skill, reach out to somebody locally and say, can we work together? Can we do something? Can I help you?
Yeah, I think reaching out is a huge part. People are usually just sort of plagued by fear, and they get, they just sort of stop themselves from, taking that step, or, just moving a little ahead, because they're just plagued by fear. So I think all of us need to sort of believe in ourselves and sort of stop believing in the fear aspect of our lives, and then just take that leap.
Yes, I think so, because it's like we said earlier about startups. What will happen? Someone will say no.
Yeah.
Fine, and it's either they might say no for good reasons or for just weird reasons that you have no idea about. It's nothing to do with you whatsoever.
True.
And perhaps you'll refine your approach the next time. Maybe that no, you say, oh, maybe they said no because
of whatever XYZ reason, and then you can absolutely refine your approach, as you said. Excellent. So this has been such a wonderful conversation. It's like, we were meeting for a high tea and had a great time. I'm so happy that, with the relevant insights that you brought to the table, and it's just been wonderful overall. I'm just awed. It's amazing. Thank you so much for, again, taking out the time and speaking to me. In case you have any last thoughts, I would be happy to hear them.
Well, I just say it's been a pleasure. And give me an opportunity to talk about blockchain and this world and cryptocurrencies, and I'm happy. So you made me very happy the last hour. Thank you so much.
You and I both. We are both very happy girls here. And I wish you all the best for your venture. And I hope we can sort of synergize and, in some way, and help each other further with, further this movement of blockchain together.
Brilliant. Oh, no, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jillian.
Wow, that was such an excellent chat. I'm sure that there was something in it for everybody. In case you have any follow-up questions for Jillian, or for me for that matter, or any suggestions, please do write to us using the form which is available in the Contact Us page on livingonblockchain.com. Now, to give you a little bit of a recap for the next episode, we'll be talking about the very fundamentals. What is Bitcoin? What is blockchain? You can tune in now on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and Radio Public. That is where our podcast is available for now. This particular episode is coming in next week. Do tune in. Do check out our website as well, and hit subscribe, because we do share some exclusive content over newsletters. The website is www.livingonblockchain.com. Until then, keep living on blockchain.